Welcome to Celluloid Chronicle,
a historical movie podcast.
We've just spent a good 20-30 minutes venting and bitching about life. A lot of it's about menning.
Yeah, but today we're here to do something a little different. Brick has brought us a Jane Austen rendition today.
Yeah, I'm a Jane Austen bitch.
And that's perfectly okay. From what I see, many people are. What have you brought us today?
Today I have brought my favorite of her books, Persuasion, and it is the 2007 production from ITV. Not the best one, but it was one I've only seen once, so I thought it would be interesting to look at it from a fairly new angle.
I thought it was pretty good for the only one I've seen. But this is a little different today. Instead of being a biopic or a rendition of a biopic, this is fiction. Today, for me, I had it a little easy because I just have to look at the history surrounding where this fiction was created from. And to all the credit of Jane Austen, she brought us something very rooted in realism. So I actually really like that. And there's a lot of interesting highlights that I'll be covering. No housekeeping today. I'm not even sure there will be outtakes for this episode, but we'll see when we get there. This might actually be a tight episode for once.
Even the fun facts, I kind of had to make do. There wasn't a whole lot for fun facts.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Should still be very interesting. All right, so Brick, lead us in.
So this is the 2000 ITV production of Persuasion, directed by Adrian Shergold and screenplay by Simon Burke. It opens, we meet the Elliot family, and the protagonist, she is running around, kind of keeping track of everything. They're closing down the house. They're at their family home, Kellynch, and we meet her father, Sir Elliot, her sister, Elizabeth, their family lawyer, Mr. Shepherd, and his daughter, Mrs. Clay, Penelope. And we also meet Lady Russell, who is godmother to Anne, and she was their late mother's friend. We meet everybody, and her father and her sister are both very, very snobby. They think very highly of themselves and their Elliot name, and they have been overspending for a long time, and they've gotten to the point that they are severely in debt. And the only option is they have to move somewhere less expensive, which is going to be Bath. They're going to let out the house. Mr. Elliot's not, or Sir William's not, too good on this, but they don't really have a whole lot of choice. I do love, though, that when Lady Russell shows up, she's, oh, this is terrible. I'm so sorry.
All the eyes.
All the eyes.
All the shifty side eyes that was going on. Also, for the first half of the movie, as someone who doesn't know Jane Austen, okay, this was a blind watch for me. For the first half of the movie, I thought Elizabeth was the stepmother. I had to freaking look up a family tree to figure out who everyone was. For half the movie, I thought she was the stepmother, and then I knew there was this sister, and, I was a little confused at first, but just because the way Elizabeth acts, she acts like a wife instead of a daughter, which is creepy now that I think about it.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, I thought about doing, these are our characters and who they are, but I was like, no, that's going to be too much, because there's too many goddamn people.
For people who actually know Jane Austen, they'll probably know who it is, but when I was, for half the movie, just because of the way, you meet them, and you come down this little garden lane, and they're eating strawberries right in front of you. I think it was strawberries. Something. Some kind of tasty fruit right in front of each other. They go,
I'm going to have crudités in the garden.
And I thought and just the way Anne was talking about father and Elizabeth.
I can see that. I do love, though, that when Lady Russell is first there, and, I'm so sorry about this, and Elizabeth, her first, this is not our fault. This
is absolutely no fault of our own.
Right. It's not our fault that we got ourselves in debt. And she says, we even cut off all unnecessary charities.
Yeah, which is just speaks absolutely to their character.
Yes.
Also, Lady Russell. I'm going to throw this in, too. Unfortunately, the actress that plays Lady Russell, I like her, but forever in my mind, she is the cult leader from Silent Hill. She has such a distinct face as an actress. She's amazing.
Yeah.
But in my mind, every time I see her, because I saw Silent Hill, one of the original movies, when I was 12.
So that's ingrained.
So she's ingrained in my mind as this horrible cult leader. So every time I see her, I'm like, just a little gasp, and then I'm like, oh wait,
Yeah.
she's an actress.
Well, like the sister that we meet in a little while, she played that actress.
She's played something too.
Yeah, she played Margaret Beaufort in The White Queen, and she's just this absolutely conniving, manipulative, terrible person.
I have not seen
and thinks, she's very holier than thou. So to see her in this ridiculous role of Mary just cracked me. Oh my god. And when she was walking around just it just made me laugh.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And of course, Anthony Head is amazing as a dad. He does angry, indignant so well. Of course, in my mind, he is forever King Uther Pendragon from the BBC series Merlin, where he played an absolute awesome king. There was a lot of actors in here. We got Remus Lupin from the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, there are. They did specifically try to get big name actors for this production. So yeah.
Well, there you go. And who plays Lady Russell? I can never remember her name, even though I know where she's played. Okay, so this woman, Silent Hill, the cult leader, she played the mother in Children of Dune in the original 2000s miniseries that came out.
Alice Krieg.
Okay. She's done so much stuff. So anyway, take us back into the movie.
Yes. They're discussing that they're going to have to let out the house, and Mr. Shepherd, the lawyer, he has found a couple who wants to live there, the Crofts, an Admiral Croft and Mrs. Croft. And Anne immediately recognizes the names. They are the sister and brother-in-law of Frederick Wentworth. So she's upset. She leaves her dad, bitching about, how ugly Navy men are and not wanting them walking in his garden. And she and Lady Russell, they go upstairs, and that's when we found out that when Anne was 19, she was engaged to Frederick Wentworth, who was a Navy sailor. He had no connections, title, or money. And her father and sister disapproved of the match. Lady Russell did too, but more on the fact that she was so young and going to be married to somebody with no connections. I think hers was more of concern, whereas her father and sister, it was all about image. Either way, the three of them convinced her to break off the engagement. So Wentworth went off to war, and he has since been promoted to captain, and he has made a large fortune. And I know Birdie could tell you, no, that we'll get into it, but she could definitely tell you how the English made their fortune going off to war.
I actually don't have a lot on that, but off the top of my head, and please do send in corrections if you feel about it, but I'll start with that. So there's actually several wars during this period. The early 1800s were quite a prolific time. Obviously, in the U.S., we know of the War of 1812. And that could be what he was talking about, but this was also a huge time of expansion for England. They were starting all their little colonies and stuff right before Queen Victoria takes over in 1837. The Navy was a huge deal. It was about 100 years after the golden age of piracy. It was still happening. Privateers, everything else. So these naval officers would go to war, and through fame and also colonizing, everywhere they went, they'd steal everybody's gold and money and goods and sell them off. So yeah, you could make quite a bit of gold and money during this time frame for naval officers, and also just like moving up the ranks. If you won great battles, if you went into certain wars and certain ranks of the military and you moved upwards, you would receive more prestige and salary. So one of the things we can talk about is that this time period was called the Regency of England. I'll get into that later, but during this time, which was roughly solidly 1811 to 1820, so this movie was based around 1815. Naval officers held respected positions, at least in the government, often gaining that social status and respect through the service. Commissions, initially purchasable, so they could buy their way into officership. So, of course, the wealthy were more often officers than soldiers. It was seen as a way for men of means to contribute to the nation and gain social standing. Officer ranks ranged from midshipmen to admirals, each with specific duties and responsibilities. Of course, obviously, to us in the modern world, we revere those in the military, especially officers. It's like, oh, you have standing, and usually that does mean a higher salary. In England, you were stuck somewhere between the working class and the aristocracy. You were useful and you had money. It's kind of like merchants in the medieval era, but you were still below like the peerage and the gentry. We're talking about the gentry in this movie. So moving on from that and talking about the gentry, again, this movie is kind of based around 1815. It's the Regency area toward the end, last 5 years or so. Anne's family, the Elliots, were considered the lower aristocracy. They were the gentry, quote unquote. They were not part of the peerage, so they weren't considered royalty or nobility, but they wanted to be. For the most part.
I always assumed that barons were part
They were
of that.
baronet.
I didn't know there was a difference.
You caught that part.
No,
yes,
I did not.
I shall get to that.
Okay. I'm learning stuff today.
Yep. They were landed families who held a respectable social position, but did not possess hereditary titles of nobility like dukes or earls.
Oh, so there's like a cutoff.
There's a cutoff.
Gotcha. Okay.
The gentry were above commoners, but below the titled aristocracy. Their income primarily came from land ownership, same as the nobility, but specifically from like rents paid by tenant farmers and managing those estates. They were also expected to live off those passive incomes, as engaging in trade or business was generally considered beneath their social standing and considered working class. So a lot of it was the same as like peerages and nobility, but they didn't have the same standing. So, and your younger sons and daughters sometimes intermarried with professionals or those in trade, and sometimes some even ventured into it themselves, but it wasn't happily done. Baronet, which our Sir William Elliot is, he landed just above like knighthood. So there was the knights, esquires, gentleman, gentlewoman. Below that's like your yeoman, man-at-arms, your elders and stuff like that. Where just above is baron and lords of parliament, the lords. So the baronet was just below where you could call yourself a lord.
Okay. I always assumed it was the same thing, just a different...
No.
Different, whatever way of saying it.
It's a different level. You just don't hear it as often because
Gotcha.
Usually in most of our royalty talks, they stop at the barons.
Gotcha.
But they're right below that, and that's why they're called Sir instead of Lord.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why he's Sir
I didn't even give that a second thought.
Elliot, yes, he is not Lord. Just to talk a little bit about the gentry, most of this people will know, so I'll kind of go through this quickly, but just to remind people, they were expected to have passive lives, right? So they get up in the morning, they start later than the working class, their servants handle all the household chores and breakfast and everything, and they take in a leisurely meal, often around 9 or 10 a.m. Very nice.
Oh, Elizabeth and Sir William were like pushing that to like 11 noon.
Definitely. In the morning, they're visiting friends, neighbors, and new brides as a significant part of that life. Often between noon and 3 p.m., these visits typically last about 15 minutes, which I'm like, what? Really? They really go around to the house? But if you remember in the beginning of the movie when they take off for bath...
Yeah.
Where Elizabeth asks Anne, can you take our leave from all the houses throughout the town? Apparently that's actually a thing. That wasn't just...
Yeah. And
you literally go house to house for 10, 15 minutes and yak.
Yeah. In another Jane Austen book, in Emma, so her friend who is in love with somebody, and Emma thinks it's a bad match.
Right.
So they want to go visit this house, but Emma is very strict and we're only going to be there 15 minutes. So it's this socially acceptable time frame to leave. We're not going to leave sooner because that's rude, but we're not going to stay longer because we're not intimate friends, kind of a thing. So she was sending that message of, this is, we're paying our duty.
I'd be pissed if you showed up at my house. And
I know, right?
What? You just interrupted my day.
To talk at me for 15 minutes.
And now you're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck. So that apparently is actually a thing. Obviously, women at this time, they engaged in needlework, musical instruments, painted, and managed their whole households and children. Men might hunt, fish, or engage in other outdoor pursuits. So, of course, we see Charles, Anne's brother-in-law, just constantly
that's all he does.
He really seemed into it, though.
And, that's a thing in the book, too. He's always out hunting.
Also valid and crucial to the plot of our movie is that marriage at this time was still a social contract, even for these gentry folks. These gentry folk, it's so interesting because they are not peerage, they're not nobility, but they got money, so they absolutely feel like they have to act exactly like the nobility. Everything you'd expect mostly from nobility, you can probably expect from these gentry folk as well. Crucial for securing alliances and maintaining or improving social standing. But the aristocracy themselves didn't really care what they were doing, what the gentry were doing, unless you were marrying into their class. A baronet is relatively low on the pole, like I said earlier, just above a knight.
So I'm just realizing, because I thought baron and baronet were the same thing. So I knew, obviously, that Sir William and Elizabeth and Mary, thought way higher of themselves than they really should have, based on that, not even title, but the baronetcy, whatever. But they were really, really stretching for that then, when I assumed that they were titled.
Well, they
technically are, but I thought they were
nobility.
Higher. Yeah, nobility. They're just taking that lower title and running with it.
They're acting like nobility.
Gotcha. So, okay, that makes it even funnier, honestly.
Yeah, actually, because they're wealthy
assholes.
people. They're just wealthy people with a little bit of clout. We also got, parents still arranging marriages, emphasizing financial stability and social compatibility. Eldest sons inherited the bulk of the family's land and wealth through primogeniture, so that's why later in the movie we see this whole thing that Sir William Elliot doesn't have a son. Younger sons often pursued careers in the church, military, or law, while daughters received smaller inheritances, often in the form of cash or stocks. In essence, the lower aristocracy, which is what we're talking about here, in 1815 England, lived a life of leisure and social obligations supported by their landed estates, with a strong emphasis on maintaining social standing and family alliances. So this is the entire plot of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw it back to Brick, but yeah, that's where we are. This is the context of our film at this time.
Okay. As we covered, engagement was broken, and this was 8 years prior. So she is now 27.
Oh, no.
And she's so old. Oh, God. She even tells Lady Russell, basically, she doesn't expect to be married because she's 27. Who's going to marry that? So that night...
I am 37.
Yeah, I'm 38. Yeah,
we are married, but
yeah, but you know what? I had my kid at 34. Oh my God! That night at dinner, Penelope, Mr. Shepherd's daughter, she has been asked to join Elizabeth in Bath as her companion. And Penelope, I forgot to mention earlier, she is a young widow, which is important. She is a young, unmarried woman. Anyway, she is invited to go with Elizabeth to Bath, and Anne is voluntold that she will be going to Uppercross to stay with her sister Mary, who is married to the Musgroves, and Mary is sick again and needs her help. And when Anne arrives, we see Mary just kind of laid out and she's so weak, and she's so sick. And, Charles went off hunting, and the girls haven't been to see me. What if something happened to me? And while Anne's talking to her, of course, she gets up, and she starts moving around. She's ready to go. She's fine. She's just a hypochondriac.
It was so bizarre. I actually thought she would be sick, and honestly, with the wording that Elizabeth used, I thought she was going to be pregnant or something. Anyway.
There's always at least one just completely ridiculous character.
And this is Mary.
Yes. And Mary is played by Amanda Hale, who we mentioned earlier was Margaret Beaufort in The White Queen, and this is just such a switch. My God, it's amazing. It's such a 180 of a character, and I love her. It makes me want to find more of her work, because obviously she's fantastic.
She made the whole movie hilarious.
Yes. I wish she had more scenes.
I mean, especially as a complete contrast to Anne.
Yes.
Who is pretty much melodramatic the entire movie. I liked her, but also okay, come on.
Right.
You are 27. Come on.
So we also meet Charles, Mary's husband, and his sisters Louisa and Henrietta, and they all go up to the big house. They see the Musgroves, Mr. and Mrs. Musgroves, and they learn that the Crofts and Wentworth are coming to dinner that night. He's invited them. They're going to come. They're all going to meet them, and the girls are talking about Wentworth. I hear he's very handsome, and he's rich. Don't forget he's rich. Of course, Anne is terrified, because why would you want to run into this person? That night, as they're all getting ready, Mary and Charles' son falls out of a tree and he gets hurt, and somebody has to stay with him, and it's kind of back and forth of well, obviously, Mary, you're the mother, of course you're gonna stay, and well, why should I have to stay and miss an evening and blah 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 blah. So Anne volunteers. They don't include this, but I don't remember the exact wording, but in the book, when she volunteers and Mary goes, oh, well, of course, that's perfect, because Anne has not a mother's feelings. It's God damn.
What?
Yeah. Can you imagine, if you were to be well, I have to go do this. Rachel, you take care of my son, because, you don't love him. You don't love him the same way, so you take care of him.
Wait, how does that make that better, though?
I don't know.
Why does that make it a better situation?
I have no idea.
That must be a translation from the early 1800s or something, because...
I mean, I kind of think it was just Mary. If it wasn't her child, she wouldn't care as much, probably. Whereas you and I have always been very involved aunts.
In each other's lives, too much, but it's okay. Yeah, I can't compute that, but also at the same time, Mary, I do have feelings for Mary because she is the wife character in this movie, and if we'll speak to any of that, is that she is put upon. Yeah. Right? As much of a hypochondriac, and they make her basically the funny person in the movie.
Yeah, she's the comic relief, but...
Thank you. Comic relief. She is put upon as a mother and wife and must do these certain things. Mm-hmm. I don't think Charles, maliciously intends any of this, and I think that Mary kind of takes it maliciously.
Probably, but at that time, there were no other options.
That was the expectation.
It was the expectation, and if he were to be more involved, it would have been
good for him.
Yeah, it would have been well, that's strange.
So the whole thing, and there's a little bit throughout the movie, there's a little bickering between Mary and Charles, but in the end, I think their marriage seems pretty solid. I was a little worried at the beginning. I'm like, are we gonna see some weird drama with them at some point? But no, it never really comes to that.
Yeah. Anne has an out. She does not have to go to the dinner. She does not have to see Wentworth tonight. She stays home. But the next morning, Henrietta and Louisa come over and immediately start talking about, how wonderful he was, and, just talking him up. And they've all been invited to Kellynch for a dinner. Anne included, obviously, since it was her home. So the Crofts have invited them all over for dinner. Without any warning, Wentworth walks in. He's come to go hunting with Charles, and you just see this absolute panic on Anne's face.
Great acting.
Very much so.
Melodramatic as hell, but
very much,
great acting.
Yeah, I understand why they used this, but she has a lot of scenes where she stares at the camera and breaks the fourth wall. And
I like it sometimes, but not others.
Yeah, it's all... it's like they almost like they did it just a little too much.
Yeah.
Maybe if they dropped like a two of them.
Yeah, a couple of them could go to the wayside. But...
Yeah, the one when she's in the carriage and she does it, she looks drunk. Like, that's how I imagine it looked when Ashley would be...
My favorite one is at the end, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, is when she looks up from her diary, and this is no spoilers, she looks up from her diary with that smile.
That is nice. I do love that one.
That was a very nice touch.
After this is the first time we see her writing in her diary, and she's saying that he has not forgiven her because she deserted him and had such a feeble character.
Yeah, that part hurt.
Yeah.
At the dinner, yeah, like... Ouch!
Yeah.
Ouch!
Yep, and I specifically mentioned, she says it was because of her feeble character, because at Kellynch that night for dinner, they meet again, and he's civil. He's not kind, he's not polite. I mean, he's polite, but he's civil, which, that can hurt worse than somebody just being flat out rude.
Yes. Been there. Done that.
And they're discussing different things, one of which the... Wentworth is saying how he's ready to settle down. His criteria is he'll take any woman between 15 and 30 who's pretty and compliments the Navy. And then kind of at a shady little side eye to Anne, after all, what right has a humble sailor to expect any better? But then, on a serious note, he says that what he really wants is a woman with firmness of character who knows her own mind. And again, that's another dig at Anne. They also discuss some Navy friends that are common between Admiral Croft and Wentworth. This is Captain Harville, who lives in Lyme with his family, and with James Benwick. And we learn that Benwick was engaged to Harville's sister. They were engaged for 5 years because her family did not approve of the match because he had no fortune. So they postponed their engagement. He went to war. He made money, but by the time he had the money, she had died. And I have it written down that, like, he seems bitter, which is understandable.
I would be bitter too.
Absolutely understandable, but it comes off more like she just, said, well, fuck you, and left, as opposed to dying. Like, but I'll get to that one.
Oh, God. Yes.
The next day, Anne, Mary, Charles, Wentworth, and the Musgrove girls, they all meet up by chance, and they're going to their cousin's house, Mr. Hayter. He's a cousin of the Musgroves, and he's kind of engaged to Henrietta. And Mary makes this pronouncement of it's not the sort of match. Basically, it's not a fitting match for someone associated with the Elliots. So she's really digging in deep there that her sister-in-law should not be engaged to this cousin because, well, you're somewhat sort of related to the Elliots. You got to do better. Anne is kind of left to herself as they're walking. They're climbing over fences and walking over logs, and she's in these Regency dresses. It's not easy. So she ends up falling off this log, and Wentworth is, quick like a bunny. He's right there to help her, but as soon as he has her safe and knows she's okay, he takes off. So he obviously still cares, but he doesn't want to care. Charles and Henrietta, they go to the house to see Mr. Hayter. Everybody else kind of stays behind and, doing their own thing. And Anne overhears Louisa telling Wentworth that originally Charles had proposed to Anne, but she turned him down, and that's when he proposed to Mary. And the family thinks Anne turned him down on the advice of Lady Russell. In the book, we know that's not true because if she couldn't be with Wentworth, she did not want to be with anybody because she had already been in love. Why would she settle for less?
But people assumed, and so now Wentworth, thinks like, oh, she let it happen again, kind of a thing. And this is where Louisa, she declares that she could never be talked out of something because once she's made her mind up, that's it. And, Wentworth praises this character trait of like, oh, that's wonderful. Not so great later. But anyways, Anne, she thinks, they're falling in love. Later on, the whole party decides to go to Lyme. So they're going to go to Lyme and see the Harvilles and James Benwick. And when Anne and Benwick are seated together at dinner, and this is the part where he seems more like somebody that got broken up with. A little bit.
A little bit.
A little extra emo.
Yeah, and they're talking about poetry and novels, and he's basically saying that, women are more fickle. you forget us sooner than we forget you. She's telling him that she doesn't believe that. And he makes a point of like, well, I have all this proof in novels and in poetry, but she points out that that's all primarily written by men, which he does concede that point.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll give him that. He concedes that point. Later on, she tells Harville that, she did recommend that he allow for more prose, so for more, lighthearted, as opposed to just sitting in the dark reading, sitting in the dark listening to emo music. Basically.
All right, so I'll add in a little bit of history here. Mostly, we're going back to Miss Clay, the lady's companion to Elizabeth, and also the daughter of our lawyer. So, a lady's companion. I thought this was pretty niche, actually, but we've all probably heard of them. So, they also had a bit of a genteel birth, quote-unquote, and basically they were a retainer to a slightly higher or same level woman of wealth and rank. Of course, it's related to a lady-in-waiting for a queen of royalty. However, for companions, this was literally their job and gave them someplace to live.
Hanging out with Elizabeth would be work, so.
They were taken in a bit by the family, so these were probably younger daughters or any daughters of that gentry class, that they didn't have any way to make money and they didn't have any way of gaining money on their own. So they'd basically just become best friends with another woman of equal or higher rank.
I'll pay you to play with my kid.
Well, they just... yeah, basically, come be their friend and they'd live with them, literally companion for hire. So...
and I'm sure that was like a great arrangement for a lot of people, because I hope that you got to, be a companion to somebody you were already friends with, which is kind of what happened here, but
yeah,
they better have paid her well, because I wouldn't have been able to hang out with her.
They were not expected to do the same work as a lady's maid who was from a working class background. They were not servants and not expected to do anything that the lady herself wouldn't do for herself. But she was paid, but they call it an allowance. They did not call it wages.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was an allowance, and you got room and board. You didn't live in the servants' quarters, you lived within the family household. Just a little outtake on the lady's companion. Obviously, this is an obsolete job, but I thought it was interesting to throw in here because even though I've seen these people in movies and other books, I hadn't really understood that this was an actual job, but it was. It kind of went out of vogue, as they would say, in the early 1900s, once women actually were allowed to work and leave the house.
I'm surprised it lasted that long, but I guess I shouldn't be, because, it took that long for us to be able to...
Once the Industrial Revolution took off and more wealthy women were allowed to actually leave their home and get jobs of their own, they just weren't as necessary.
Okay.
So, the second thing I wanted to bring up was Bath itself, which is located in Somerset, which is a county in England. Bath is actually really famous. Anyone out there's probably... if anyone knows anything about England, you've probably heard of Bath. It's known for and named after its Roman-built baths. Bath is in the valley of the River Avon, which is about 97 miles west of London. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site as of 1987.
Okay.
Yeah. So the city became a spa with the Latin name Aquae Sulis. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly, but it means the waters of Sulis, Sulis being a god, around 60 ACE, when the Romans built baths and a temple in the valley of the River Avon, although hot springs were known even before then. The Bath Abbey was founded in the 7th century and became a religious center. The building for the abbey was rebuilt in the 12th and 16th centuries. In the 17th century, so we're talking the 1600s, claims were made for the curative properties of water from the springs, and Bath became popular as a spa town in the Georgian era. So I'm going to harken back here, though, to our last episode where Bath came up for our Queen Anne, which was the late 1600s, early 1700s, where she actually went to Bath quite a bit to recover from her pregnancies and other ailments. So this was even before it became super popular, but even then it was still a place to go to recover. During the Georgian era, which is right after Anne, the fall of the Georgian monarchy, I always got to bring it into context here in our timeline. The Georgian era was when the Hanovers took over. So Georgian architecture, which was crafted from Bath specific stone, includes the royal crescent, the circus, the pump rooms, which comes up in the stories, and the assembly rooms. So in the early 18th century, which is the 1700s, Bath acquired its first purpose-built theater, the old Orchard Street Theater. It was rebuilt as a Theatre Royal, along with the Grand Pump Room, attached the Roman baths and assembly rooms. So I was wondering, later on in the story, we keep hearing about these pump rooms, and I'm like, that's a name.
Yeah.
No, it's because these are rooms attached to Roman baths and those associated assembly rooms. Bath had become perhaps the most fashionable of the rapidly developing British spa towns. In 1816, which is really quite around right where we're talking, because I was talking about 1815, it was described as, quote-unquote, a seat of amusement and dissipation, where scenes of extravagance in the spectacle of the wealthy and the idle, the weak and the designing, were habitual.
Okay.
The population of the city was around 40,000 at the 1801 census, making it one of the largest cities in Britain. The Roman baths and magnificent temple were built around the natural hot spring, which rises to a 46 degrees Celsius, which is very hot in Fahrenheit, definitely over 100 degrees. And we're at the center of Roman life in Aquae Sulis between the 1st and 5th centuries. The remains of the Roman ruins are remarkably complete and include sculpture, coins, jewelry, and the bronze head of the goddess Sulis Minerva, which is a merging of Minerva and the god Sulis. A visit to the Roman baths would not be complete without a visit to the taste of the waters and enjoy tea, coffee, or a snack in the 18th century pump room, center of Georgian entertainment in its day, which is situated just above the temple. And that's according to the Bath website. Those are my little outtakes for that portion, so I will put it back to Brick.
Okay. I do know that the water's supposed to, taste sulfur. There's supposed to be a sulfur taste.
Spa water.
I remember reading that in the book, and the first time I read it, I was just like, oh.
No, I would not. I'm not sure I'd enjoy the smell or the taste. I'd probably still go in just because I'm achy enough, though.
Yeah, I do still want to do one of those float pod things.
Right, I know.
While they are in Lyme, twice Anne runs into a handsome young man who kind of eyes her up and down, and she doesn't know who he is at first, but while the party's having breakfast and she's run into him the second time and he's leaving, he's getting in his carriage, we find out that he is her cousin, Mr. Elliot. Mr. Elliot is the one who is going to inherit everything when Sir William passes away, and they had been in contact previously, but then he made a inconvenient marriage that Sir William did not approve of. She was wealthy, but she had no standing. As far as he was concerned, she was a nobody. Yes. She was wealthy, but she was a commoner. They did not speak for a long time. We do find out later that she has now passed away. After they've finished breakfast, the group is going for a walk, and this is where we see that Louisa's determination to do what she wants doesn't end great, but she jumps off the stairs, and in the book, I think she does this a couple times. I think she does it a few times, but anyways,
there's this ongoing thing where Henrietta and Louisa keep jumping off things to be caught by Wentworth.
Yeah, and Louisa goes too high, and everybody tries to stop her, but she jumps, and I do appreciate that in this version, we at least see some blood, and I know that sounds harsh, but in the other movie, she just kind of falls, and then all of a sudden she's unconscious, and it's like, well, what the fuck happened? Okay, so in this, you can at least see she hit her head, so it makes more sense. But anyways, she loses consciousness, and they get her back to the Harvilles. Wentworth wants to leave Anne to take care of her, and this is because he thinks that Anne is the best person for this. She's the most capable. But Mary, needing to be the center of attention, she gets very upset because
this annoyed me a lot.
Yeah. You know, what is Anne to Louisa? You know, I'm her sister and you want me to leave and leave my husband here and I won't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, whatever, she's gonna stay. Wentworth is now taking Henrietta and Anne back to Uppercross to tell the Musgroves what's going on. And this is where we get the shot of her looking drunk in the carriage. Yeah. But anyways, when they get there, he asks her for her advice in the best way to handle this situation. And you can tell that she appreciates that. He lets them know what's going on, and as he's leaving, she's telling him she's going to be going to Bath. And he does mention that, you know, you've always hated Bath, so he still remembers these things. But she asks him to send her updates, you know, let her know how Louisa's doing. When Anne arrives at Bath, she gets there just in time to hear Penelope telling Elizabeth, well, now that Anne's here, you can't want me. And she hears her sister say, Anne's nothing to me compared to you, which is just what you want to hear your family say about you.
Yeah. All right, I'm just gonna interject here again with a little outtake on Lyme Regis, which is where they went, and this whole situation where Louisa fell happened. So Lyme Regis is an actual ancient borough in England with the earliest known charter dating from 1284. Until 1604, the borough only covered a small part of the parish, but in that year, the borough expanded to encompass basically all of that parish. In Saxon times, the abbots of Sherborne Abbey had salt boiling rights on the land adjacent to the River Lyme, and the abbey once owned part of the town. Lyme is mentioned in the Domesday Book of 1086. It's that old. In the 13th century, it developed as one of the major British ports. A royal charter was granted by King Edward I in 1284 when Regis was added to the town's name. So the town's name was Lyme, and then when the king granted that charter, Regis, which kind of means royal, just basically, it's Lyme Royal. The charter was also confirmed by Queen Elizabeth I in 1591. I don't know why it took that long. So also talking about this place they keep visiting. You see it in the movie where they're along this very long stone wall with the waves crashing along it. So
I know that's appeared in a lot of movies and miniseries.
Yes. So it's very famous, apparently. I didn't know that. It's called the Cobb, and it's located in Lyme Regis. The first record of the Cobb, which is the town's harbor wall. It's a harbor wall. The first mention of it is in 1328 in a document describing it as having been damaged by storms. Go figure. It was originally made of oak piles of wood driven into the seabed with boulders stacked between it. The boulders were floated into place and tied between the empty barrels.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I had a really stupid moment of how the hell did they float a boulder, but then I forgot, they'd put it on something.
They put it on something, but yeah. So the boulders, yeah, let me clarify that. The boulders.
No, that was just me being dumb, being slow.
Tied between empty barrels and then floated into place. A 1685 account describes it as, and I quote, an immense mass of stone, of shape and of demi, with a bar in the middle of the concave. No one stone that lies there was ever touched with a tool or bedded in any sort of cement, but all the pebbles of the sea are piled up and held by their bearings only, and the surge plays in and out through the interstices of stone in a wonderful manner, and I unquote.
I like that.
The Cobb Wall provides a breakwater to shield the town from storms and separate Monmouth and Cobb Gate beaches. So the Cobb is economic importance in and around the town, creating an artificial harbor that enabled the town to develop as a port and shipbuilding center from the 13th century onwards. So really long time. Shipbuilding was significant between 1780 and 1850, so this time that our characters are visiting this place is quite right in that middle of the time where a lot of shipbuilding was done in this area, which also makes sense that the Navy would want to go there a lot. Nearly 100 ships were launched from this port, including the 12-gun Royal Navy brig HMS Snap. It's well cited for trade with France. The port's most prosperous period was from the 16th century until the end of the 18th. In 1780, the port was larger than the port of Liverpool, but its importance declined in the 19th century as it could not handle the ships of increasing size, which makes sense if it was kind of a cobbled together port. The Cobb has been destroyed or damaged by storms several times, obviously. It was swept away in 1377, along with 50 boats and 80 houses. The southern arm was added in the 1690s and rebuilt in 1793 after it was destroyed in a storm the previous year. It was thought that mortar was used in the Cobb's construction for the first time in this rebuilding. So it was reconstructed in 1820, shortly after where our story takes place, using Portland Admiralty roach, a type of Portland stone. After the Great Storm of 1824, Captain Sir Richard Spencer, RN, carried out pioneering lifeboat design work in Cobb Harbor. The current Lyme Regis Lifeboat Station opened in 1997. So that's a little bit on Lyme Regis, which I thought was really fascinating. I actually have a bit more later, but I thought this place was really fascinating, and especially as a place for our characters to be visiting at this time.
It's someplace if I ever get to travel, I'd love to see.
We gotta do that one day.
Anne comes in, and her father, Sir William, and Elizabeth, they immediately start bragging about the house that they've rented and, the people that they're seeing, the things they're doing, they're very much in demand, blah, blah, blah. And Sir William just barely remembers to ask how Mary is doing.
His daughter, mind you.
Yes, his daughter, his youngest daughter, his little baby girl.
Do we even see them together in the entire movie?
I think they're all in the foyer at the same time.
Oh, at the end.
At the end.
But at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, because she does see him. Yeah. That's the only time you see them together in this movie.
Okay.
Anyways, Anne learns that Mr. Elliot is here in Bath. He is back in contact with the family, and Elizabeth very obviously thinks that he's interested in her. Anne now learns that the wife has passed away, so he would be free to marry, and Elizabeth very much thinks that she is the one he's interested in. But when he walks in, he immediately recognizes Anne as the woman he saw in Bath and is very obviously attracted to her. Meanwhile, we see back in Lyme, we see Wentworth and Harville having a discussion. They're discussing Louisa's recovery and how happy they are. And Harville basically congratulates Wentworth, prematurely of, I approve, you're going to be very happy. And this is Wentworth kind of just realizing that everyone expects him to propose to Louisa, which...
I'm shocked he didn't.
I know, how dense.
You are not that dumb. Come on.
Right,
That's that's straight out of an anime.
Yeah, right. Well, and then he even admits later that, the reason he was being so flirtatious with her was he was trying to prove that he was over Anne. So you knew...
Yeah, I mean...
You were doing this,
what did you expect, especially in society like this?
Right, and this is like a young teenage girl. Of course she's gonna get the wrong idea, but whatever.
Straight out of an anime.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So he's now learning that everybody, including Louisa and her parents, are expecting him to propose, and he realizes he's kind of stuck because at this time it would be completely inappropriate for him to not propose when everybody is expecting it. It would kind of impugn her honor. So he's pretty much honor bound at this, but Harville suggests that he go and visit his brother, I think he said in Shropshire.
Shropshire, yeah.
And,
Shropshire.
maybe with absence, let it cool off basically, see what happens. So, that's his plan. He's going to take off for a little bit while Louisa recovers. We join Anne and Lady Russell. This is where we first see them, I believe, in the pump rooms.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, either the pump rooms or the
concert?
assembly. No, this is before. So this would be the pump room because the assembly room is the concert, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So they're at the pump room, just whole, creme de la creme, a whole bunch of people are there. Anne is telling Lady Russell that she's a little suspicious of Mr. Elliot. Why would he suddenly, he's going to inherit everything no matter what, no matter how the family feels about him, so why is he suddenly renewing contact? What's in it for him? And she does have a theory, which we later see is proved correct. So Mr. Elliot is speaking to her, and he brings up a concern of Penelope, Mrs. Clay, might have hopes of becoming the new Mrs. Elliot, and that would kind of, ruin things for him if she were to have a son, but we don't quite get to that yet. But anyways, he's sharing this with Anne because he feels that she feels the same way. Her only point is that her father would regret the connection, which we already know. He would never marry somebody that, he feels is beneath him, but whatever. It's in this meeting where he kind of flirts with her and he kisses her hand, and Elizabeth sees this and immediately gets pissed off, and later on says something really snappy, really catty to her about oh, Mr. Elliot's not with you, or I thought he'd be with you. I don't know, so I can't remember, but it says something kind of bitchy.
She's mad.
Yeah, she's mad, which, okay, I've been there, I've been jealous before, I've said stupid shit too, so
she's mad, bro.
Yeah. Anne has gotten a letter from Charles updating her on Louisa. She has recovered, she's doing better, and the Musgroves are coming to Bath to shop for wedding clothes and her trousseau because she is getting married. He does not say to who, but naturally she assumes it's Wentworth, and we see her reading this letter and just sobbing.
Yes.
It's heartbreaking. And we've learned that some high society cousins, now I assume that the Dalrymples, are they nobility? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure, they didn't really, at least in the movie, they didn't explicitly say.
And I don't remember from the book.
But they are a bit higher, but also still cousins of the Elliots. So.
Okay. And it's a connection that the Elliots are very eager to exploit, very eager to highlight. These cousins are in town, they're going to go to the Dalrymples, but Anne has plans to see a friend from school, and this is somebody, she's a widow, she has nothing. She has no money, no titles, nothing, so the father is very upset.
Well, she has something, because she has a maid.
Well, yeah. But as far as he's concerned, she is a nobody.
Yeah.
And, how...
A smith like any other smith?
Yes.
Basically?
Yeah, one of the many thousands of smiths, and, Anne points out, she can't be the only poor widow in Bath. This is the first time we really see Anne just kind of stand her ground, and she's not going to cancel on this friend. She goes, and are you familiar with Chekhov's gun?
A little bit.
So just anybody listening, if you don't know, so Chekhov's gun it's not really a theory. I don't know what you would call it.
It's a movie thing.
Yeah, and it's, if something is introduced at one point in the movie, it needs to come back. So if a gun is introduced in some point in the movie, it needs to be used or, further the plot later on. And I only say that because I thought I was hilarious. It's not so funny looking back, but I thought I was fucking hilarious. So she sees her friend, Mrs. Smith, who has a maid nurse, Mrs. Rook, and Mrs. Rook she knows all the gossip. She knows everything that is happening in Bath with everyone at any time. And I made a joke to my husband of, she's Chekhov's gossip monger.
Yes!
And he definitely gave me a pity chuckle.
I think it's funny, but also, because you're not wrong.
Right.
Okay, she's Chekhov's gossip gun.
Yes, there we go. Yes, Chekhov's gossip gun. I like that.
Yes.
All right.
So just put a pin in that.
And just to let you know, how on the ball this woman is, Anne has just told her father she is not going to the Dalrymples. She is going to Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith already knows through Mrs. Rook that she has declined the Dalrymples' invitation to see her. She already knows that. Yeah, but I think this is just to highlight that this bitch knows all. She is...
I actually didn't connect this till after I finished watching the movie. this whole Chekhov's gun thing.
Oh,
you're
okay,
mentioning
yeah.
right here, and I was like,
Yeah, so I don't know. Mrs. Rook is like the oracle, I guess.
she is.
But Wentworth, he returns to Lyme. He's gone to see his brother, who basically tells him that he's an idiot. And he's telling Harville that he's now realized he's still in love with Anne. He thought he was over everything, but he's still in love. He was just angry and resentful. And because he was trying to prove that he was over her, now he's gotten himself in this situation. And he has no choice but to marry Louisa when he's in love with Anne. And Harville is kind of trying to stop him. He's like, did you get Benwick's letter? Well, you must not have got the letter. And basically, well, let me tell you what was in the letter. And we find out that Benwick and Louisa have actually fallen in love, and now they are engaged. And in the book and in the movie from the 90s, we find out like they fell in love over poetry. He was reading poetry to her while she was recovering, and of course that is like prime. You're gonna fall in love.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The emo.
Yes, anyway. Very much. If I were, I'm assuming she's roughly like 16, 17. Yeah. Oh yeah. If I had been injured and some dude was at my bedside reading me poetry, panty dropper. Okay.
Yeah.
He's free. He now realizes he is free. He has no obligations, no ties. He can be with Anne. So he's very excited. They take off to Bath. Everybody ends up in Bath.
So now I'm going to take the opportunity at this point to just do a little outtake on Jane Austen. I'm not going to do a whole deep dive on her. She's worth her own episode of some sort. I'm sure there will be, and probably is, a movie out there on Jane Austen. We'll put that on the list at some point. I just wanted to add this in just for the context of the movie. Jane Austen, writing all this, she based most of these stories on different situations from her life, people she knew, obviously the locations she frequented. She wanted all her situations to be realistic. So one of the things that keeps popping up is, instead of like these bodice ripper romance novels where it's like, oh, I love you, oh, Derek, oh, la la la. No, she actually made her protagonists slightly awkward with each other. Practical language, practical situation, practical reactions in those moments, but still giving the emotion that would be there. Yeah.
She also, when they would have these moments of like whatever, declaring their love and proposing, she didn't get into it. She just kind of gave you like a vague, this is what they're doing, they're declaring their love, but she didn't get down into the language of it, which I think made it feel more realistic, because when it gets like really flowery in the language, just like people don't talk like that.
Much,
so yeah, she kept those more realistic too.
Yeah, they'd be like, so yeah, we've been doing this for about 8 years now. Are we gonna get married? Yeah, let's get married. Yeah,
I do like that. You can kind of insert your own, like imagine your own,
real.
Right?
Which is, she changed literature with these stories. So as for Jane herself, she was born in 1775, the 7th child of George and Cassandra Austen. The family was plagued by money troubles. They were also gentry. I don't know if they were titled, but they were in this level that we see in the book here. But the money troubles is something that comes up in all her books. Her father did not manage money very well at all. And also, it was kind of because of the fact that it was unusual for all his children to actually survive childhood. So I think he weren't
counting on that.
7 or 8 children at this point, and they all lived.
Yeah.
Which, obviously wonderful, but also at that time, like, damn.
Yeah, you weren't expecting that.
No. She wrote prolifically since the age of 12. She did actually have some touches of love. She never married herself. One of her first loves was someone called Tom Lefroy. He ended up becoming a lawyer and a judge. That just kind of fell apart because they didn't match, they didn't have money, blah blah blah, all the stuff that shows up in her books. But she took that time and she grasped at the thrill of that love and romance as a heroine in her own right, and of course that translated to her novels. My second outtake will be on Somerset itself. So this is the principal seat of the entire story. This is where Bath is located. This is where Lyme Regis is located. This is where Kellynch would be located, her family home. So archaically, it was known as Somersetshire. It's a ceremonial county in southwest England. It's bordered by the Bristol Channel, Bristol itself, Gloucestershire to the north, and Wiltshire to the east. Dorset to the southeast, and Devon to the southwest. That might not mean anything to anybody, but that's kind of where it is. The largest settlement is the city of Bath, and the county town is Taunton. A ceremonial county, just to kind of clarify what that is.
I was going to ask.
Yep, is an area designated for the appointment of a Lord Lieutenant who represents the monarch in that area. So this is like a super old school thing in England.
Okay.
These counties were defined by the lieutenancies, or lieutenancies probably, Act of 1997, and are often used as a geographic reference frame. Sometimes called geographic counties. They are distinct from historic counties and administrative counties, although they may share the same boundaries or names with them. Somerset is predominantly a rural county. Way back when, just to dive in a little bit deeper, there was Paleolithic human occupation in this area. The area was subsequently settled by the Celts, the Romans, and the Anglo-Saxons. The county played a significant part in Alfred the Great's rise to power. He was one of the original unifiers of England. And then later, the English Civil War. Harken back to our last episode, and the Monmouth Rebellion, also our last episode. In the later medieval period, its wealth allowed its monasteries and parish churches to rebuild in a grand style. Glastonbury Abbey is here and was particularly important and claimed to house the tomb of King Arthur and Guinevere. Not really, but finally in the Industrial Revolution, these Midlands and Northern England spelled the end for most of Somerset's cottage industry. Farming continued to flourish here, and Bath and the west of England Society for the Encouragement of Agriculture, Arts, and Manufactures and Commerce was founded in 1777 to improve farming methods, but that only went so far. And that's mostly from the places where we go, heading to England and Somerset. I will move it back over to Brick.
Okay. So Lady Russell is telling Anne that Mr. Elliot has been speaking very highly of her, and she suspects that he's going to end up proposing to Anne, and Lady Russell is very excited about this because she wants to see Anne in her mother's place. Basically, she would be Baronetess? With that? I don't know. She would be Lady Elliot, yes. Anyways, and she would, be in Kellynch Hall. So she's excited by this, and Anne even writes in her diary that this is tempting. He does seem to be a good person. He seems nice. She would be back home. So this is a tempting.
It's a good backup.
Yeah, you gotta have a reserve. But the Admiral and Mrs. Croft arrive, and they are telling her, the only news anyone is talking about is Louisa's marriage. And it's kind of vague. So yes, very vague, which, Austen did a lot of, these kind of fakes as well. She thinks they're discussing Wentworth and Louisa's marriage, but then finally they say that she's married Benwick. So she's relieved, visibly relieved, and they're like, are you okay?
Yeah, you good?
You good? You gotta sit down. Anyways, so now she knows that Wentworth is still free, and by chance they run into each other at a shop. It's raining, he runs in, and she's there, and they have this kind of awkward little meet cute where, I'm very happy for Louisa and Bennet, but he does admit that he feels Harville's sister was a superior woman, which kind of mean, this girl's 17, fucking, yeah. But whatever. Anyways, he believes that Bennett's first fiancée was better, and he says a man should not recover from that type of passion, and then he looks at her and says he does not. Again, panty dropper moments. So just then, before they can really say anything else, Mr. Elliot interrupts to, we've got a carriage, let's go. And Anne tells him that they're going to a concert that night. So then this would be the assembly rooms, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Assembly or pump rooms, one of the two.
And At the concert, when Wentworth arrives, her dad and her sister and Lady Russell, they're kind of astonished. Sir Eliot looks offended that he's there. They all remember him. Elizabeth is whispering to Penelope, telling her who he is and what the situation was, but Anne doesn't care. She goes straight over to him. And they have another kind of almost moment where they just start to speak to each other, and her family drags her off because the Dalrymples have arrived and she needs to go meet them. So they just kind of drag her away. And when they all go in, she is seated with Mr. Eliot, and Wentworth is hearing his sister and the Admiral discussing, there's going to be another marriage. Everybody's talking about it, Mr. Eliot and Anne. So he thinks, this was a waste. This was all, it's too late. So he gets up and leaves, and Anne chases him out. And this is another kind of heartbreaking moment where she stops him, and, she had invited him under the pretext of, you always loved music. And she says, is the first half not worth staying for? He says, no, there's nothing here worth me staying for.
Oh, God. You needed to say that.
That's rough.
Ouch.
Yeah, I'd have cried. Mr. Eliot, he had come out after her. Wentworth leaves, and Mr. Eliot takes this moment alone to propose to her. And like we see in a lot of the Austen movies, not really the book, but in the movies, or I guess in the books, the people that they don't end up marrying, whatever, he gives this kind of flowery speech of a proposal, but tells her, I don't want you to answer right now. Think about it. Tell me tomorrow night. Her family is having a party. Tell me tomorrow night. Okay, so the next day, a lot of shit is going to happen, okay? This is the next day after the concert, after Wentworth thinks that she's engaged to Mr. Eliot. A lot of shit is about to go down, so buckle up. Here we go. The next morning, Anne receives a letter from Wentworth saying that he is coming at 11 o'clock to talk to her, and she has this cute little funny panic moment of she's reading it and the clock strikes 11 and there's a knock at the door and she's just kind of like turning in circles. Instead, her sister Mary and Charles walk in, and we get this, another little ridiculous moment from Mary of, we've come to Bath so I can take the waters. It might be my last hope. And then, Father! And then she's all excited. She's off. She's good. And while they're all talking, Wentworth arrives, and, again, her father is obviously irritated, why, looking at him like, what the hell are you doing here? Anne takes him off to a side room, and he has been sent by Admiral Croft because he has been informed that she is to marry Mr. Eliot, and they wish to live at Kellynch. If that is the case, they will end their tenancy, they will move out, let them have the house, they'll find...
awfully nice. They just moved in.
Yeah, and I assume they have some kind of a legal agreement, he wouldn't have to do this, but he's being kind. That's all Wentworth needs, a yes or a no, do you want to move into the house? And Anne tells him that he's very much misinformed. None of this is true. Up to this point, he had not been looking at her. He had just been kind of looking off to the side, asking this. And as soon as he finds out you're not engaged, now he's looking at her. We see they're, again, about to have this kind of almost moment, and they are blocked a third time by Lady Russell and Mary. Mary brings Lady Russell in, and, of course, Mary's kind of giggly and goofy. Wentworth leaves after greeting Lady Russell. He leaves. Mary is, still being goofy. Lady Russell is it true? You said Mr. Eliot proposed, but Anne gets around her, she gets out, she's trying to follow Wentworth, she's seeing him go out the door, but now the Musgroves arrive, and the girls are hugging her and kissing her and greeting her, and she's trying to get around them. By the time she gets out the door, he's gone. So she takes off in the direction that I guess she knows where he's staying, but anyway, she takes off in that direction, but up runs Mrs. Smith, her friend. And this is where we get the Chekhov's gossip gun.
Yes.
So Mrs. Rook has informed her. I don't think they say that, but anyways.
Because that's why I was confused at first.
Yeah.
But yes.
Mrs. Smith has come to see Anne because she has found some things out about Mr. Eliot, and she has also heard that they are engaged, and she wants to make sure she knows exactly who she is before she agrees to marrying him. So we find out that Mr. Eliot was never in love with his first wife. He married her for the money, which, that happened.
Which also, in the true crime world, as a person who partakes of that, I'm like, did he kill her?
Right. Yeah, we never find out how she died. Who is it?
Yeah, the bath guy.
No, I was thinking of Queen Elizabeth's dude that she was in love with and his wife that died falling down the stairs, but nobody was around.
Oh, Robert Dudley.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Anne Dudley. Which I know, like, it probably wasn't murder.
It probably was an actual accident. But...
Yeah, it still looks shady as fuck. But anyways, okay. He only married her for money, and he very much also wants the title and the money, everything that goes with it, but he had heard a rumor that Sir Eliot might marry Penelope, Mrs. Clay, and if that were to happen and she were to have a son, he is no longer in line to inherit. So he came with the intention of screwing that up somehow. But he met Anne, and he really does have an interest, a genuine interest in Anne, but he has told Penelope, I will set you up in London as my mistress as soon as I am married to Anne. So that's him kind of tucking her out of the way. She can't marry Sir William. There ain't going to be no legitimate children.
He took care of all sides.
And they don't include it in this movie, but he actually ends up marrying her himself.
Clay?
Yes. Now... I am like 99.9% positive that this ends up happening in the book. But it's been a few years since I've read it. I do know that it happens in the other movie. I am almost certainly positive that it happens in the book also, but it's another way for him to make sure that he's still the one that inherits. So now Anne knows, he is conniving. He is just out for himself. So she runs, thank you for telling me this. I have to go. She runs off. She goes to where I believe the Harvilles are staying, and Wentworth would be staying as well. And she sees Mr. Harville, she sees Captain Harville, and he gives her a note. Wentworth left this for you. I was going to bring it to you. Here you go. And this is where we get the letter. He's explaining he's in love with her. He never got over her. I was a dick, but it was because I didn't get over you, basically. Yeah. But this is where we get the famous line, you pierce my soul. I am half agony, half hope. And he proposes and says, a word, a lot will be enough. And those are two very famous Austen lines that everybody loves. Yes. Never mind, Mr. Darcy, get you a Captain Wentworth.
I mean, yeah, honestly, I appreciated it. I'm going to add in a couple of my last bits here. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and add my couple last bits since we're finishing up with the movie. But just to talk a little bit more about Jane Austen and her publishing and her legacy. So she actually, during her most of her lifetime, she published anonymously, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Because women during this time should not take ambitions. They were not supposed to be ambitious. So she published, her literal first work was published as By a Lady.
Okay.
And then I think this was Pride and Prejudice, I might be wrong, but once that was published, her successive works were published by the author of Pride and Prejudice, by the author of Sense and Sensibility. It was never by her name. There's literally not her name on these works at that time. These first editions. She was actually supported as a writer by her family, including her father, who took a great turn in making sure she was educated. However, after the death of her father, she moved around with her mother and sister into her brothers, plural, care, wherever they basically wanted to put her and her mother, her sister and her mother. Oh yes, her first work was Sense and Sensibility. So by 1816, though, she fell ill. She had never married, as I mentioned previously, but she seems to have ignored the warning signs of her illness, and she just kind of kept working, kept on going, and then she passed away, likely from cancer, in 1817. She was 41 years old. She still worked during this entire time until she literally couldn't lift the pen anymore, and half her works, I think, were published posthumously.
Persuasion was actually her last completed novel.
For her legacy, though, these are some quotes from professors of literature and an English PhD student. There is a level of intelligence in her work that the reader feels. and it has to do with her psychological perceptiveness and the sheer skill of her writing. When you read Jane Austen, you sense that you're in the hands of someone authoritative and reliable, but there is always this feeling that she is one step ahead of you. And this is by Alex Wallach, Stanford Professor of Literature.
I like that.
A second quote is, "For me, Persuasion is one of Austen's most interesting and important novels, in part because she breaks a lot of her own rules in it. The novel's setting invites us to think about the relationship of the political to the personal, or the domestic. It's startling to think of Austen as a war novelist, but Persuasion reminds us of just how extensive her vision was." And this is by Elizabeth Wilder, an English PhD candidate. And this was talked about in Stanford Literary Scholars Reflect on Jane Austen's Legacy. And finally, I just want to put in a little outtake on what the Regency era is. I'm sure most people know what this is, but I'm just going to do a little quick jaunt about it. What is the Regency? The Regency era of British history is commonly understood as the years between 1795 and 1837, which is when, I believe, Queen Victoria took the throne. Although the official governmental regency for which it is named only spanned the years 1811 to 1820. King George III first suffered debilitating illness in the late 1780s and relapsed into his final mental illness in 1810. By the Regency Act of 1811, his eldest son, George, Prince of Wales, was appointed Prince Regent to discharge royal functions. The prince had been a major force in society for decades at this point, but when George III died in 1820, the Prince Regent succeeded him as George IV. In terms of periodization, the longer time span is roughly the final third of the Georgian era, 1714 to 1837. And it's the Georgian era because there's like 4 Georges, 4 King Georges. But this encompasses the last 25 years or so of George III's reign, including the official regency, and the complete reigns of George IV and his brother and successor, William IV. So they just ignored the Williamation. That doesn't really work in a periodization. So, yeah, the Williamsy. It doesn't really work. It ends with the accession of Queen Victoria in June 1837 and thus ushers in the Victorian era, which lasted till 1901. And that will be the end of our little historical bit. I will let Brick finish us out.
So Anne has read his letter, read his proposal. She's still running, trying to find him. She kind of, runs into his sister and Admiral Croft. They point her in the right direction. She takes off again. And she finds him talking to Charles and literally runs into him, which I thought was cute. But I like the way they did this because Charles he's trying to ask her if she's okay. She's been running. Hey, are you all right? And, I guess we could walk you home, but I need to go. This guy's going to show me a gun before he ships it out because, hunting.
And he just keeps talking.
Yes,
but... I'm like, shut up.
I love this because he keeps talking, but they slowly fade it out because, they're staring at each other. They are only interested in each other. So they slowly fade it out and you see him finally, he just kind of leaves. He's leaving Wentworth to take care of Anne, and he fucks off. He's gone. So now that they're alone, she tells him that she accepts his proposal. She is in receipt of his proposal, and she accepts. And she tells him that this time nobody is going to persuade her otherwise. And we get the slowest to happen kiss.
Oh, the slowest.
Like, goddamn, come on. Yeah. And this is one of the things I do like this movie. I do, but this is one of the things that I love the one from the 90s better because they just have this very kind of sweet, soft, yes, I accept. And instead of having them have this like big romantic moment, they're just kind of staring into each other's eyes, and you see this passing band that's playing.
Okay, that's
like, yeah, and it just kind of passes behind them. So, that's just kind of like, oh, they're celebrating inside kind of a thing.
The kiss, I'm like...
It took forever.
I would be able to smell your breath by now, and I wouldn't want that, so no.
Fair. But
yeah.
Yep, they have their kiss, and then we see in the end that he has bought Kellynch for her as a wedding gift, and they dance on the lawn.
Now, was that in the book?
I don't think so.
I like it. I did like that. Again, I'm not really in this world, but I did enjoy the movie, and it was a little bit melodramatic, as we've discussed, but I thought it was really cute.
Yeah.
It was really cute.
The end.
The end.
All right, Birdie, do you have some fun facts for us?
I do. Mostly about Lyme Regis. This place was really fascinating. Lyme Regis was actually the basic... And if you can hear my cat in the background, she's playing with her toy. Good job, Jenny! Anyway, so Mary Anning was a geological pioneer, and some of you may heard of her. I think she's known as one of the rejected princesses in life. Like, she comes up as a woman feminist person that really kind of took science by storm. So between 1811 and her death in 1847, so right in our time frame, she found and identified Jurassic marine reptile fossils in the cliffs to the east of Lyme Regis. The museum today stands on the site of Mary Anning's birthplace and the family shop off Bridge Street, holding a collection of local memorabilia, historical items, and exhibits to explain the local geological and paleontological treasures. It was formerly known as the Philpott Museum, which actually I think I've heard of. Set into the pavement outside the museum is an example of Coed stonework in the form of ammonites, reflecting the paleontology for which the town is famous. So another famous thing that Lyme Regis is known for. It commemorates Eleanor Coed, who had an 18th century artificial stone factory in London and a seaside home, Belmont House, in the town. The Dinosaur Land Fossil Museum is in the former church where Mary Anning was baptized. That's fascinating for all you paleontologists out there. Another fun fact is that on New Year's Day in 1915, the HMS Formidable was torpedoed, the first major U-boat kill of World War I. A local lifeboat delivered the bodies to the Pilot Boat Inn in Bridge Street, again Bridge Street, in Lyme Regis. This I love. Lassie, the owner's dog of the inn, licked the face of Seaman Cowan, who was believed dead, and seemingly brought him back to life.
Aww.
As you know, Lassie is the namesake of this crossbreed and became a legend of books, radio, film, and television.
Oh, good Lassie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I need to look into that further because that just kind of fascinates me. And finally, this year marks the 250th year of Jane Austen's birth.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so good coincidence.
All right.
All right, Brick, what do you got?
So there were not a whole lot of movie fun facts.
Oh.
This was part of a 3-part production for ITV's Jane Austen season, and they specifically chose 3 of her lesser-known works, so Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, and Mansfield Park. Ones that are not usually we're going to see Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, but they specifically chose these 3 because they were lesser known, and as I said earlier, they tried to get as many big name people into these as they could. Each movie was written, directed, produced by separate people so that they all 3 had their own styles and feels. Okay. I have not seen the other 2 because I can't fucking stand those books. So probably not.
I thought you were a Jane Austen stan. How dare you? I'm just kidding.
Like Northanger Abbey, that protagonist, which I should know the name, I cannot remember, okay. But anyways, she is so annoyingly perfect.
Oh no.
And I believe that was done on purpose. It was, kind of satire on all these, angelic heroines, whatever. And then Mansfield Park, that one's not bad. It's just a little cheesy. That one she wrote as satire on, the Gothic novels. The protagonist in that one, which is played by Billie Piper from Doctor Who. In the ITV production.
Okay.
But that one, she's just this young girl who reads way too many Gothic novels and thinks that, there's all these plots and intrigues and everything. So that one I could watch, I'm sure, but just when I read it when I was younger, it just, Many of the costumes have been reused either in earlier productions or since then. I'm not going to get into that list because it is a very long list, but that'll be included.
They were nice. They were nice.
That will be included in our sources through IMDb. You'll be able to see if you're interested in the costumes down to, this bonnet was also worn by this person in this production of this thing. And many of them do have other Austen links specifically. I do want to just point out something that they left out of the movie. In the book, Wentworth does have a connection to the Musgroves because when he first became a captain, he had under him the Musgrove's son, who is not mentioned in this movie. His name was Richard, and he died. Ooh. So he was kind of a fuck around, and they sent him off, and he was so lazy and just selfish that Wentworth had to make him write letters home to his family.
Damn.
Yeah, but I just want to say, so two quotes from the book. Richard Musgrove. In the first quote, "The real circumstances of this pathetic piece of family history were that the Musgroves had had the ill fortune of a very troublesome, hopeless son, and the good fortune to lose him before he reached his 20th year."
Oh, shit!
Yeah.
I see where the movie cut him out.
Yeah, it's just, it goes nowhere. It's like a page and a half. But anyways, and then this, I've always loved this. He had, in fact, though his sisters were now doing all they could by calling him poor Richard, been nothing better than a thick-headed, unfeeling, unprofitable Dick Musgrove, who had never done anything to entitle himself to more than the abbreviation of his name, living or dead. So that's all that dude had going for him, was his family gave him a nickname.
Ooh, and of course it was Dick.
Yep, R.I.P. Dick.
Oh, damn.
I had
See,
to...
that is the shit that Jane Austen, that lives 250 years later, still hits.
And if anybody is interested, it was a 2-part book series that I read a few years back. It was Bitch in a Bonnet. And they covered Jane Austen's books. And this was such a aha moment for me because when I was in high school, me and a couple friends, we were reading these books. And one of my friends, hi Crystal, you're still a bitch. was, there are these wonderful romances, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, I don't know, I think she's kind of making fun of it, though. I think she's, kind of, poking fun at it. And she just got super pissed off, told me I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I wasn't intelligent enough to understand it, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, turns out, Crystal, I was right the whole time. So, But I will include a link to that as well.
Yeah,
Bitch in a Bonnet.
I need to read that.
Fantastic.
Excellent. All right, well, we're going to move into our sources then. I'm going to make this a quick list. I will list these in the show notes, but this is definitive. I actually had it easy this week because I got to pick and choose what history I wanted to talk about.
I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I was worried with it being fiction that you wouldn't find enough to be interested in.
This actually makes it easier. Okay. I got Social Etiquette and Manners in Regency Society, which is an article. Most of these are articles. I didn't get into any books this week because there was plenty of books on Jane Austen, but again, this is not a biopic about Jane Austen. Another article I read was on Regency naval officers, and then critical essays on women's roles in early 19th century Britain. I also looked into the Bath of Somerset website, and then the Cobb at Lyme Regis location website, the Places Where We Go, all about Somerset. And then Stanford literary scholars reflect on Jane Austen's legacy, which I mentioned before. I did watch a video called Jane Austen, an Incomplete Legend. Another video called The Wicked Wit of Jane Austen by Iseult Gillespie. And then finally, I always want to thank Wikipedia, who told me all about the Regency era and probably supplemented other points of my history jargon because they do great summaries. All right, what about you?
Again, mine are always very easy. For this, it was really just IMDb and Wikipedia. I did try looking up some articles about the movie production, but I just didn't really find those that interesting.
That's fair.
But we'll include the IMDb and Wikipedia and, of course, the Bitch in a Bonnet link as well. I'll probably do Goodreads. They'll be able to lead you to whatever your format is for purchasing. This was my pick. Our next pick is going to be Birdie. And Birdie, what have you chosen for us to watch?
All right, I am super excited because we're finally moving into a little bit of horror. Like we mentioned in our early trailer days, we are going to be doing The Others from 2001, starring Nicole Kidman and a bunch of other people. I'm actually really excited because it's a gothic, supernatural, psychological horror. It's got all the twists and turns, and it is very, very historically set, right in World War II. We're going to move up in our eras, in our centuries, and also we're going to get into the spooky.
Yes, I am very excited. This is one of those ones that I've seen and I loved, and I just, for whatever reason, did not watch again, even though anytime I thought of it, I was like, I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times, but it's been a while, so I'm excited to watch it again.
I will say that this one comes with a huge twist.
It does.
So if it's something...
A lot of people might already know it.
Yeah, you probably already know. If you don't, and you want to know what the twist is before you listen, go and watch it so we don't spoil it for you.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for listening to Celluloid Chronicles, a historical movie podcast. Please like and subscribe to us wherever you listen, and we hope you join us again soon.
And always remember,
live like you're making history.
Bye.
Bye.